I know who you really are. Xiao Yan froze by her locker in the university changing room. The voice behind her belonged to Kim Tae-hyun, and his tone was dripping with malice. I don't know what you're talking about, she said without turning around. The maid's daughter who's been fooling us for 4 years, Tae-hyun hissed, stepping closer. Lee Min-hee. Your mommy washes dirty laundry in the Wang family's house. And you pretend to be one of us. Xiao Yan felt the blood drain from her face. Her greatest fear had finally come true. Tonight, at graduation, everyone will know the truth, Tae-hyun continued with sadistic pleasure. Can you imagine Ray Wan's face when he realizes he's been flirting with the maid's daughter from his own home? Please, she whispered, turning to him. Don't. Too late to beg, he sneered. You've been playing out of your league for far too long. But Xiao Yan didn't know the most shocking secret, the one that would be revealed in just a few hours and turn her entire world upside down. She had no idea that Ray Wan, the heir of the empire where her mother worked, was not who he claimed to be. And that their fates were bound together far more tightly than she could ever imagine. Meanwhile, in the luxurious Wan family mansion, Madame Wan Su-min stood by the window of her office, holding an envelope with DNA test results. A test she had secretly ordered a month ago, suspecting something she had hidden for 23 years. The result was staggering. Ray Wan was not her husband's biological son. Elsewhere in the city, Lee Min-hee sat on the edge of her bed, staring at an old photograph, the only thing left of the man she had loved 24 years ago. A man who didn't even know he had a daughter. A man whose son was now studying at the same university as her, Xiao Yan. Seoul University of Economics and Finance was famous not only for its academic achievements but also for the fact that most students were millionaire heirs, children of corporate magnates, diplomats, and celebrities. Among them was Xiao Yan. At 22, the hazel-eyed girl with chestnut hair kept to herself. Every day she wore a mask of indifference, hiding her anxiety. Her clothes were modest and strict, dark suits, white shirts, comfortable shoes. She was considered the best student in international economics. Her paper on the impact of digital technologies on emerging markets received the highest praise. But she avoided parties, fancy restaurants, and branded fashion, things alien to her world. Her secret lay in her origins. Her mother worked as a maid for the Lee family, one of the biggest chaebols. Through their patronage, Xiao Yan had received a scholarship and the chance to study. After classes, she returned to their modest apartment to help her mother wash and iron other people's clothes. Lee Min-hee, at 45, was still strong and wise. Widowed at 25 and raising her daughter alone, she had worked as a maid for years, preserving her dignity and forging resilience. Education is the only thing no one can ever take from you, she often told her daughter while folding other people's expensive laundry. Knowledge will make you free. Xiao Yan absorbed those words with her whole heart. She studied from morning until late at night, devouring knowledge. Math, economics, English, history, everything came easily to her. Her classmates saw her as a quiet overachiever who preferred books to fun. Some thought she was arrogant, others simply odd. But no one suspected the truth. Xiao Yan skillfully avoided questions about her family, always found excuses not to go to expensive places, and politely declined invitations, citing exams or research projects. The hardest part was dealing with Park Soo-yeon, the daughter of a pharmaceutical tycoon. At 20, this beauty with doll-like features and princess manners seemed to sense something was off about Xiao Yan. Soo-yeon was the unofficial leader of the student community, and her opinion mattered greatly to others. Xiao Yan is so mysterious, she told her friends during lunch. No one knows where she lives, what her parents do, or why she never buys anything from the campus boutique. Maybe she's just modest? Suggested Kim Ji-soo, daughter of a famous director. Modesty and secrecy are not the same thing, Soo-yeon retorted, eyeing Xiao Yan, who sat in the far corner of the cafeteria with a macroeconomics textbook. But the brightest star of the university was Ray Wan. At 23, he was already a legend among students. heir to the Wang family's multi-billion empire of hotels, restaurants, and entertainment complexes across Asia. Tall, athletic, with tousled black hair and piercing dark eyes, Ray attracted the attention of not only girls but also professors. Unlike other heirs who treated education as a formality, Ray took it seriously. He studied international business and innovation, preparing to modernize the family empire. Fluent in 4 languages, he played piano and violin, practiced martial arts, and had a deep interest in modern art. But what truly set him apart was his attitude toward people. He didn't see them as mere connections or distractions but valued individuality. That's why he noticed that behind Xiao Yan's cold mask lay intelligence and deep sensitivity. He first paid attention to her in their 3rd year, during a seminar on international economic relations. Professor Cho asked about the impact of globalization on developing countries. While most students stayed silent or gave shallow answers, Xiao Yan spoke up. Globalization is a paradox. It creates opportunities for growth but also deepens inequality. Developing countries remain suppliers of cheap labor and raw materials, yet gain little access to technology or finance. It's a new form of dependence, sometimes harsher than direct political control. The room went silent. Even Professor Cho, known for his strictness, nodded approvingly. "Excellent analysis, Miss Xiao," he said. "You've touched upon one of the core issues of modern economic theory." After the seminar, Ray approached Xiao Yan. "Impressive answer," he said with a genuine smile. "Have you read Stiglitz on globalization?" Xiao Yan looked up, meeting his gaze. For a moment, she was caught off guard. None of her classmates had ever engaged her in academic discussion. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "And also Chang and Krugman's works on the topic." "Ha-Jun Chang?" Ray asked in surprise. "His Bad Samaritans is a brilliant critique of neoliberalism. Few of our classmates even know Korean economists of international standing." For the first time in years, Xiao Yan felt she could speak as an equal with someone from that world. Ray showed no condescension or surprise that she understood complex economic theories. He spoke to her as a peer. "Maybe we could discuss his ideas over coffee sometime?" he suggested. Xiao Yan felt her cheeks flush. Part of her wanted to say yes, but her mind immediately raised its defenses. "Thank you, but my schedule is very tight," she said, gathering her books. "I'm preparing for the Young Economists Conference." That wasn't a lie. She had applied to present at an international conference the following month. But the real reason for her refusal was different. She couldn't afford to get close to Ray Wan. Too many secrets, too wide a gap between their worlds. The next few months passed in their usual rhythm. Xiao Yan remained the top student, still kept to herself, while Ray occasionally tried to engage her in discussions after lectures. Each time, she found a polite way to avoid closer interaction, yet their academic conversations grew deeper and more engaging. Ray became even more intrigued by this mysterious girl. Unlike other students who openly flirted with him, hoping to gain access to his wealth and status, Xiao Yan seemed completely indifferent to his background. She debated economic theories with him, criticized his views on the role of private capital in technological development, and offered alternative solutions for business cases. And she never tried to impress or please him. One evening in mid-May, just 2 months before graduation, something happened that changed everything. Xiao Yan stayed in the library later than usual, working on the final chapter of her thesis. When she finally left, it was already 9:30. The university campus was nearly empty, with only a few students hurrying back to dorms or bus stops. She didn't notice the 4 young men who appeared from around the corner, led by Kim Tae-hyun, the son of a construction tycoon. Tae-hyun was notorious for his foul temper and contempt for anyone he considered beneath him. Since school, he had been used to solving problems with either money or force. "Look who we've run into," he sneered, blocking Xiao Yan's way. "Our modest overachiever." Xiao Yan tried to walk past, but the boys closed in on her. "Where are you rushing off to?" Tae-hyun continued. We barely ever talk. And graduation's so close, who knows if we'll see each other again. Excuse me, I need to go, Xiao Yan said, trying to keep calm. My bus is leaving. The bus? One of Taehyun's friends laughed. Seriously? I thought all our classmates had cars. Or at least parents with cars, another added. Taehyun stepped closer. He smelled of alcohol. They must have been drinking at a nearby bar. You know what I'm curious about? He said, leaning toward her face. You've been here 4 years, but no one really knows who you are. No one's seen your parents, no one's been to your home, no one knows what your family does. Xiao Yan felt her heartbeat quicken. This was the moment she had feared for years. That's my personal business, she answered firmly. Personal business? Taehyun smirked. Or maybe you're just ashamed. Maybe you know you don't belong to our circle? Come on, Taehyun, one of the boys muttered, already uncomfortable. Leave her alone. No, I want to know, Taehyun insisted. Do you think we're idiots? We've noticed you never buy expensive things, never eat at good restaurants, never travel. Either your family's ridiculously stingy, or they're just broke. Or maybe I'm simply not interested in the things that interest you, Xiao Yan said, lifting her chin. That was a mistake. Taehyun took her words as a challenge. Not interested? He raised his voice. Or can't afford it? Admit it, sweetheart, where are you from? What kind of family? That's none of your business, Xiao Yan repeated, trying to push past him. Taehyun grabbed her arm. At that moment, Ray stepped out of the library. He had also stayed late, working on a strategic management project, and immediately realized something was wrong. Is there a problem? He asked, walking toward them. The boys turned. Seeing Ray, they faltered. No one wanted trouble with the heir of the Wang Empire. No problem, Taehyun said quickly, releasing Xiao Yan's arm. Just talking. Looked far from friendly, Ray remarked, stepping to Xiao Yan's side. Maybe you should continue this conversation another time? It wasn't a request but a polite yet unmistakable demand. Taehyun got the message. Of course, he muttered through clenched teeth. See you at graduation, Xiao Yan. We'll continue our acquaintance there. The boys walked off, grumbling. Ray watched them go, then turned to Xiao Yan. Are you all right? Yes, thank you, she answered, trying to steady her trembling hands. I'm fine. Doesn't look like it, Ray said. Let me walk you home. That's not necessary, Not up for debate, he said firmly. Taehyun might come back. And guys like him don't like being contradicted. Xiao Yan wanted to argue, but she realized he was right. Besides, she was too shaken to go home alone. All right, she agreed. But only to the bus stop. To the bus stop, Ray nodded. They walked in silence for the first few minutes. Xiao Yan gradually calmed down, but Taehyun's words still echoed in her mind, see you at graduation. We'll continue our acquaintance. What had he meant? He didn't target you by chance, Ray suddenly said. He had a purpose. Xiao Yan flinched. What do you mean? Taehyun's the type who enjoys humiliating others, Ray explained. But he usually chooses easier targets. The fact that he went after you means he knows something. Or at least suspects. His words struck right at the heart of her fear. Xiao Yan stopped. And what do you think he knows? She asked, trying to sound indifferent. Ray stopped as well, studying her closely. I don't know, he admitted honestly. But if you ever want to talk about it, I'll listen. No judgment. For a moment, Xiao Yan wanted to tell him everything. Years of silence, constant tension, the fear of being exposed, all of it pressed down on her unbearably. And Ray seemed so understanding, so genuine. But her reason prevailed. She couldn't take the risk. If the truth came out, it would destroy her future and put her mother in danger. Thank you, she said. But everything's fine. Taehyun's just drunk and looking for trouble. Ray nodded, though he didn't look convinced. As you say. But if anything happens, come to me. I mean it. The bus stop was already in sight. Xiao Yan quickened her pace, eager to end the conversation. Yet inside, she was gripped by a dreadful sense of foreboding. While Xiao Yan rode home in the crowded evening bus, replaying the events in her mind, Ray walked to his car with heavy thoughts. Something in her behavior had unsettled him. Over the years, he had learned to read people, and tonight, in her eyes, he hadn't just seen annoyance at Taehyun's harassment, but real fear. But fear of what? Or of whom? Ray started his silver BMW and drove home, to the luxurious Gangnam mansion where the Wang family had lived for 3 generations. On the way, he couldn't shake off his thoughts of Xiao Yan. For 4 years he had watched her from afar, admired her intelligence, and tried to unravel the mystery of her background. And now he realized that the mystery might turn out to be a painful secret. At home, a surprise was waiting for him. In the living room, sipping tea with his mother, sat a woman of about 45. Petite, with delicate features and quiet manners, she seemed out of place among the antique furniture and expensive works of art. Ray, let me introduce you, said his mother, Madame Won Su-min, an elegant woman of 50 with flawless makeup and a pearl necklace. This is Madame Lee Min-hee. She has been working in our household for many years. Ray bowed politely. He knew his mother preferred to call the staff assistants or employees, but that didn't change the reality. The Won household employed many people, cooks, maids, gardeners, guards. A pleasure to meet you, he said. Min-hee asked for this meeting, his mother continued. She has a daughter who's about to graduate from university. The same one you attend. Ray raised his eyebrows. That was unusual. The staff rarely came to the family with personal requests. Seoul University of Economics and Finance? He asked. Yes, Min-hee replied quietly. Her name is Xiao Yan. Perhaps you know her? Ray felt the world slow down around him. Xiao Yan? The maid's daughter from their household? That explained so much, her modesty, her refusal to speak about her family, her constant wariness. I know her, he said, trying not to betray his emotions. She's an excellent student. Min-hee smiled for the first time that evening. She's my pride, she said. She has studied hard all her life, earned a scholarship. I'm so grateful to your family for giving her this opportunity. Madame Won waved her hand. Nonsense. Educated people are what our country needs. So what's the problem? Min-hee hesitated, choosing her words. The graduation ball is coming soon, she began. Xiao Yan has never taken part in such events. She doesn't have a suitable dress, and she doesn't know. How should I put it? How to behave in high society. I'm afraid she'll feel out of place. And what are you suggesting? Asked Madame Won. I know it's bold of me, but perhaps you could give her some advice? Or maybe your stylist could help her choose an outfit. I'm willing to pay from my savings. Min-hee, Madame Won interrupted. Don't be ridiculous. Of course we'll help. Ray, what do you think? Ray was still trying to process what he had just learned. Xiao Yan, the maid's daughter. The woman who had washed his shirts, prepared his breakfasts, cleaned the house for years, had raised a girl who became the best student in their class. And this girl, now a grown woman, had lived every day in fear of her secret being exposed. Of course, we'll help, he said. But I don't think Xiao Yan needs much advice. She's well-mannered and intelligent. Min-hee looked at him with gratitude. Thank you, she said softly. But I still want her to look dignified. This is her big day. Madame Won was already making plans. I'll call Madame Park tomorrow, she said. She has the best salon in Seoul. And the stylist will choose the dress and accessories. But I must pay. Madame Wang said firmly. You've served our family faithfully for 20 years. This will be our gift to your daughter. After he left, overflowing with gratitude, Ray was alone with his mother. Mother, he said. Why did you never tell me he had a daughter? Madame Wang shrugged. Why would I? That's her personal life. We don't meddle in the staff's affairs unless it affects their work. But her daughter has been in my university. For 4 years. So what? His mother asked, surprised. You don't socialize with everyone. Everyone has their circle. Ray realized his mother had no idea how closely their lives were intertwined. To her, Xiao Yan was simply the maid's daughter, granted a favor by being allowed an education. She didn't know that this girl had been his inspiration, his intellectual challenge, his love. That same night, in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, another important conversation took place. He told her daughter about her visit to the Wang family. You did what? Xiao Yan gasped. Mother, how could you? Now they know. Calm down, my dear, he took her daughter's hands. Madame Wang is a kind woman. She wants to help. Help? Xiao Yan pulled her hands away and began pacing the room. Don't you understand? They'll find out who I am. Everyone will. That's the end of everything. Xiao Yan, her mother said gently. You've been hiding for 4 years. But the truth will come out sooner or later. Better it happens with dignity. With dignity? The girl laughed bitterly. Mother, you don't know these people. To them, we're nothing. Servants. They might help out of pity, but they'll never accept us as equals. He was silent, feeling her daughter's pain, but knowing the path she had chosen led to a dead end. Do you know what young Master Wang said when he found out you were his classmate? She asked quietly. Xiao Yan stopped. What? He said you were well-mannered and intelligent. No condescension, no surprise. As if you were his equal. That made Xiao Yan pause. Ray Wang had known the truth and had shown no contempt. More than that, he had defended her against Tahun even before knowing who she was. Tomorrow we're going to the stylist, her mother continued. And the day after is your graduation. Your last chance to show them who you really are. The next day was a true ordeal for Xiao Yan. In the morning, she arrived at Madame Park's salon, a place she had only ever heard her classmates talk about, as if it were the unattainable Olympus of style and luxury. Madame Park, a woman of impeccable taste and a sharp eye, greeted her without ceremony. So you're Minhe's daughter, she said, circling Xiao Yan and examining her. Good proportions, proper posture. Yes, we can work with this. Madame Wang asked for something suitable for graduation, Xiao Yan said hesitantly. Suitable? Madame Park scoffed. Girl, we'll create a masterpiece. Sit down. The next 4 hours passed in a blur. Xiao Yan tried on dresses, elegant, refined, each costing more than several of her scholarships combined. Stylists worked on her hair, makeup artists debated shades, manicurists polished her nails. This one, Madame Park declared when Xiao Yan stepped out in a long emerald silk gown. This is your color. The dress was simple in cut but flawless in execution. It highlighted her graceful figure without being provocative, and the deep emerald shade made her hazel eyes shine. It's too expensive, Xiao Yan murmured, staring at herself in the mirror. Not your concern, Madame Park snapped. Madame Wang has paid for it. Your only task is to wear it with dignity. By evening, she returned home with boxes and bags, the dress, shoes, a clutch, jewelry. It all felt foreign to her, like costumes for a stage performance. You look beautiful, her mother said when Xiao Yan showed her the outfit. Like a princess. Princesses don't pretend to be what they're not, Xiao Yan replied sadly. Meanwhile, Ray spent the day deep in thought. Now that he knew the truth about Xiao Yan, everything made sense. Her reluctance to talk about her family, her modest clothes, her refusal of expensive entertainments, none of it was odd character traits, but necessity. He understood the courage it took for her to walk into the university every day, surrounded by classmates who spent more on lunch than her family earned in a week. How many times had she felt like an imposter, terrified of being exposed? Ray made a decision. Tomorrow, at graduation, he would do what he had been thinking about for months. He would confess his feelings to Xiao Yan. And let the whole world know that the heir of the Wan Empire was in love with a maid's daughter. But he had no idea that forces had already been set in motion against Xiao Yan. That same Wednesday evening, Park Soo-yeon was meeting with Kim Tae-hyun in an upscale cafe in central Seoul. A folder of documents lay on the table between them. Are you sure it's her? Soo-yeon asked, flipping through the photographs. Absolutely, Tae-hyun replied with a triumphant smile. My father hired a private investigator. Xiao Yan is the daughter of Lee Min-hee, the maid in the Wan household. She studies on a scholarship for underprivileged families. Interesting, Soo-yeon drawled. And how long has she been deceiving us? 4 years. But tomorrow it all ends. What's your plan? Tae-hyun leaned closer. Graduation is the perfect moment. Everyone will be there, parents, professors, journalists. A public unmasking in such a setting will destroy her forever. Soo-yeon nodded. She had never liked the way Xiao Yan kept to herself, as if she thought she was better than others. It was time to put this upstart in her place. And what about Ray Wan? She asked. He seems to like her. Ray? Tae-hyun laughed. Once he learns the truth, he'll turn away on his own. Heirs don't get involved with servants. They didn't know that in the booth next to them sat John Min-soo, a classmate who had accidentally overheard their conversation. Min-soo had never liked Tae-hyun's cruelty and arrogance. And although he wasn't close to Xiao Yan, the thought of publicly humiliating someone disgusted him. He pulled out his phone and began typing a message to Ray Wan. Friday, graduation day, began with a clear, sunny morning. Xiao Yan woke early but couldn't bring herself to get out of bed for a long time. Her mother had already left for work, leaving a note, remember, you're no less than they are. Show them who you are. Love you. By noon, Xiao Yan was ready. The emerald dress fit her like a second skin, her hairstyle was flawless, and the light makeup highlighted her natural beauty. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The graduation ceremony was held at the Lotte Hotel, one of the most luxurious in Seoul. The enormous ballroom was decorated with fresh flowers and crystal chandeliers. Students in evening gowns, their parents in expensive suits, professors in academic robes, all of it created an atmosphere of solemnity and importance. Xiao Yan walked into the hall, feeling the eyes on her. Some people turned in surprise. In such an elegant outfit, she looked completely different. Others whispered, clearly discussing her unexpected transformation. Xiao Yan? Kim Ji-soo approached her. You look stunning. Where did you get that dress? Thank you, Xiao Yan smiled. A gift. Ray spotted her from across the room and, for a moment, forgot how to breathe. She was radiant, not just beautiful, but radiant with that rare kind of beauty that shines from within. And he knew that tonight he would confess his feelings. But first, the ceremony had to be endured. The first part of the evening followed protocol. Speeches by the rector and deans, the awarding of diplomas, congratulations from parents. Xiao Yan received her diploma with honors and a special award for the best thesis. When her name was announced, the hall erupted in applause. She earned it, she heard Ray's voice behind her. Turning around, she saw his warm smile and felt a surge of gratitude. Whatever happened next, in this moment she was happy. After the formal part, the banquet began. Students and their families mingled, chatted, took photos. Xiao Yan tried to remain unnoticed, but deep down she knew something was about to happen. Tahun and his circle were far too quiet. Around 8 in the evening, when everyone had relaxed after dinner, Tahun rose from his seat. A glass of champagne in one hand, a microphone in the other. "Friends," he said loudly, "I'd like to propose a toast." The hall gradually quieted. Tahun was known for his speeches at student events. "Today we graduate from university," he continued. "For 4 years we studied together, made friends, supported each other. We were honest with each other. Well, almost all of us." He put special emphasis on the last words, and Xiao Yan felt her blood run cold. "You see," Tahun went on, "among us there is someone who has been lying about herself for 4 years. Pretending to be someone she is not." The hall tensed. Everyone understood that something unpleasant was coming. "Xiao Yan," Tahun turned to her with a poisonous smile. "Don't you want to tell everyone the truth about your family?" Xiao Yan stood, her knees shaking. This was the moment she had feared for 4 years. "No?" Tahun continued. "Then I'll do it. Dear friends, allow me to introduce Xiao Yan, daughter of Li Minhe. A maid. She cleans your parents' houses, washes your clothes, scrubs your floors." The hall exploded in whispers. Students glanced at each other, parents frowned. Xiao Yan stood at the center of attention, feeling the world crumble around her. "For 4 years, Tahun declared triumphantly, she pretended to be our equal. She wore plain clothes to hide her poverty. She refused invitations because she couldn't afford them. And yet she took scholarships meant for Tahun. That's enough." Ray's voice cut through the noise like a blade. He rose from his seat and walked toward the center of the hall. "Are you finished?" he asked in an icy tone. "Ray, I just thought people deserved to know the truth." "The truth?" Ray stepped closer to Xiao Yan and stood beside her. "Fine. Let's talk about the truth." The hall froze, waiting. "Yes, Xiao Yan is a maid's daughter," Ray said loudly. "Her mother has worked in our home for 20 years. With honesty, dedication, and dignity." Classmates began turning away from Xiao Yan. "How dare you study with us, maid's daughter?" Park Soo-yeon said loudly. Xiao Yan lowered her head, ready to take the blow. But Ray stepped forward. "If she's a maid's daughter, then what are you?" His voice rang out so strongly it reached even the farthest corners of the hall. The crowd fell silent, stunned by the unexpected turn. "She is smarter and more worthy than any of you," Ray went on, ignoring the shock in the eyes around him. "And if you don't see that, then your education has been wasted." "Ray, you don't understand." Tahun began. "I understand more than you think," Ray cut him off. "I understand that someone who's been the top student for 4 years deserves respect, not humiliation. I understand that a woman who raised her daughter alone and gave her the best education deserves admiration, not contempt." He turned to Xiao Yan, who was looking at him with astonishment and gratitude. "And I know that I fell in love with the most wonderful girl in this hall." If earlier the hall was filled with whispers, now dead silence fell. The heir of the Wang Empire had just publicly confessed his love to a maid's daughter. Ray's confession exploded like a bomb. Chaos erupted in the hall. Students exchanged shocked glances, parents muttered indignantly, and professors had no idea how to react to such an unprecedented situation. Xiao Yan stood as if in a fog, unable to believe what was happening. Ray Wang, the man she had secretly loved all these years, had just defended her in front of everyone and confessed his love. It felt impossible, like a fairy tale. "Ray," she whispered, "you don't have to." "I have to," he answered firmly, taking her hand. "I have to tell the truth. You are the most honest, intelligent, and strong person I know. And I don't care what anyone else thinks. But not everyone was indifferent. Madame Wang Su Min was quickly approaching, accompanied by a stern-faced man in his 50s, Ray's father, Mr. Wang Jingwu. Ray, his mother said coldly, we need to talk. Immediately. Mom, this isn't the time. This is exactly the time, his father interrupted. We're leaving. Now. Ray squeezed Xiao Yan's hand. Wait for me, he whispered. I'll come back. After the Wang family left the hall, the atmosphere became even more tense. Tahun, deprived of his anticipated triumph, made one last attempt to wound Xiao Yan. Do you really think he's serious? He said with a mocking smile. Ray Wang and a maid? It's just pity, darling. Give it time, and he'll come to his senses. But Xiao Yan no longer listened. In her mind, Ray's words kept echoing, I fell in love with the most wonderful girl in this hall. Could it really be true? Could her feelings truly be returned? Meanwhile, inside the car heading toward the Wang mansion, a serious conversation was unfolding. Have you lost your mind? Mr. Wang was beside himself with fury. To publicly declare your love for a maid's daughter? At graduation, in front of journalists and our business partners? Dad, I love her, Ray replied calmly. Love? Madame Wang scoffed. Ray, you're young, you're confusing sympathy with real feelings. Give it time, and you'll see your mistake. For years is enough time to know how I feel, Ray retorted. Mr. Wang turned sharply to his son. 4 years? Are you saying you've known about her background all this time? I only found out 2 days ago. But it changes nothing. Changes nothing? His father exploded. Ray, you are the heir to one of the largest corporations in the country. Your future wife must come from the right family, with proper upbringing, connections. Xiao Yan received the best education in the country, Ray interrupted. She's smarter and more accomplished than most girls from those so-called right families. Education isn't everything, his mother said. There is also background, tradition, and an understanding of how our world works. Then our world is wrong, if it judges people by their origins instead of their qualities. The car stopped at the mansion. The family entered the living room and found an unexpected guest waiting. On the couch sat Li Minhee, her eyes red from crying. Madame Wang, she rose upon seeing them. Forgive me for coming so late, but... What happened, Minhee? Madame Wang asked in surprise. I heard what happened at graduation, the maid said, keeping her eyes lowered. The young master defended my daughter, and now she might be in trouble. I beg forgiveness for her and for myself. We never tried to rise above our station. Minhee, Ray said softly. You don't have to apologize. For anything. Don't have to? Mr. Wang's voice was icy. I think she does. You and your daughter have created a very awkward situation for this family. Minhee flinched at his tone. Mr. Wang, if you want, I will resign. Dad, enough, Ray cut him off sharply. Minhee isn't to blame for her daughter being intelligent and beautiful, or for me falling in love with her. Falling in love? Mr. Wang gave a bitter laugh. Childish fantasies. In a month you'll forget her. I won't. You will, his father said firmly. Because tomorrow you're leaving for London. You'll spend a year interning at our European office, far away from all this nonsense. Ray felt his breath catch. You can't force me to leave. I can, and I will, Mr. Wang said coldly. Either you go to London willingly and forget this girl, or I cut you off from the inheritance and fire her mother. Choose. It was a direct threat. And Mr. Wang meant every word. That would leave Xiao Yan and her mother with nothing. Minhee turned pale, realizing she had become a hostage in this game. Young master, she said quietly, don't risk everything for us. We'll find another way. But at that moment, Madame Wang intervened. And what she said changed everything. Jing Wu, stop, she told her husband firmly. There are things you don't know. Everyone turned to her. What do you mean? Mr. Wang frowned. Madame Wang hesitated, then looked at Min He. Tell him, she said. The time has come. Min He shook her head. Madame Wang, we agreed. 20 years of silence is enough. Especially now, when our children's happiness is at stake. Ray didn't understand what was happening, but he could sense that something important was about to be revealed. Mom, he said, what's going on? Madame Wang took a deep breath. Ray, there are things about our family you don't know. And about Min He's family too. She walked to an antique secretary and pulled out a folder of documents. 23 years ago, before your father and I married, he had an affair. With a young woman from a humble family. Mr. Wang turned pale. Su Min, don't. I must, his wife said firmly. That woman became pregnant. And though you didn't marry her, you accepted responsibility for the child. Min He covered her face with her hands, while Ray felt the floor shift beneath him. You're not saying. Yes, his mother nodded. Xiao Yan is your half-sister. Your father's and Min He's daughter. The silence in the living room was deafening. Ray stood frozen, unable to process the words, while Mr. Wang looked as if he'd been struck in the stomach. This is impossible, Ray whispered. At last, Min He raised her tear-streaked face. Forgive me, she said. I never wanted you to find out like this. Why did you keep it secret? Ray demanded of his parents. For 23 years? Mr. Wang sank heavily into a chair. When Min He became pregnant, we were both very young, he began. I had just finished university, preparing to take over the company from my grandfather. A marriage with a girl from a humble family could have ruined all the plans. But you could have acknowledged the child, said Ray. I could have. But Min He herself asked me not to. Everyone turned to the maid. I understood that our worlds were too different, she said quietly. Jing Wu was the heir of an empire, and I was a farmer's daughter. Our romance was a beautiful fairy tale, but fairy tales end. I didn't want my child to grow up knowing her father was ashamed of her existence. I was never ashamed of her, Mr. Wang objected. But circumstances. Circumstances made you hide the truth even from your own son? Ray's voice was thick with bitterness. Madame Wang took her husband's hand. When your father and I married, I already knew about Xiao Yan, she said. More than that, I insisted that Min He work in our house. I wanted to make sure the girl never lacked anything. You knew? Ray was astonished. Of course. And I watched for years as that smart, talented girl grew up. When it came time to apply to university, I personally made sure she had a scholarship. Ray felt everything falling into place. The chance meeting with Xiao Yan at their university, her outstanding academic success, the attention professors gave her. You were watching her all along, he realized. Not watching, but caring, his mother corrected. From a distance, without interfering in her life, but making sure she had every opportunity to grow. Min He rose from the couch. I have to tell Xiao Yan about this, she said. She has the right to know the truth about her father. Wait, Ray stopped her. But what about? What about my feelings for her? Does this mean I'm in love with my own half-sister? Once again, heavy silence fell over the room. Everyone had been thinking the same thing, but no one dared to voice it. Ray, Madame Wang said gently, you grew up in different families, unaware of your bond. Your feelings are natural and understandable. But impossible, Mr. Wang cut her off. Now that the truth is known, there can be no place for such a relationship. Ray felt his world finally collapse. The woman he loved turned out to be his sister. Their love had been doomed from the very beginning. I must see her, he said. Tell her the truth. Now? His mother asked in surprise. Ray, it's already late. The girl is surely shaken after tonight's events. That's exactly why I must see her. She's waiting for an explanation. Mr. Wang stood. Very well, he said. But tomorrow you are still leaving for London. For an indefinite time. Until you understand that these feelings must be forgotten. And Xiao Yan? What will happen to her? Nothing will happen to her, Madame Wang assured him. She'll be given a job in one of our companies if she wants. Or we'll help her find a position elsewhere. Her future will be secure. But not her happiness, Ray said bitterly. No one answered that remark. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan sat in her small room, trying to process what had happened. After the Wang family left, graduation ended quickly. Students dispersed, whispering and casting curious glances at her. Tahun and his clique were triumphant. Their plan had worked. Xiao Yan's reputation was ruined. And yet something had gone off script. Ray Wang hadn't abandoned her, as they expected. Instead, he had defended her and confessed his love in front of everyone. It was incredible, fantastical, and utterly impossible. Xiao Yan had changed into casual clothes and now sat by the window, gazing at the city lights. In her mind, Ray's words kept spinning. I fell in love with the most wonderful girl in this hall. Could he really have meant it? And what now? A sudden knock at the door made her flinch. It was already 11 at night. Who could be visiting at this hour? She went to the door and peeked through the peephole. Standing outside were her mother and Ray Wang. Her heart skipped a beat. Ray had come, just as he promised. But his expression was strange, not joyful, but almost doomed. Mom? Xiao Yan said in surprise, opening the door. What are you doing here together? We need to talk, Min, he said gravely. Very seriously. They went into the small living room. Ray looked around, modest furniture, humble surroundings, yet everything was neat and spotless. Books lined the shelves, many on economics, history, literature. In the corner was a small desk with a computer, where Xiao Yan had worked on her thesis. Please sit down, Xiao Yan said, still not understanding what was happening. Would you like some tea? Thank you, but no, her mother replied. Xiao Yan, what I'm about to tell you will change your life. And not for the better. The girl felt a chill spread inside her. Mom, you're scaring me. Minhee drew a deep breath and began her story. About her romance with the young heir Wang, about her pregnancy, about her decision to hide the truth. About how all these years Mr. Wang had cared for them from a distance, ensuring Xiao Yan had an education and a future. With each word, Xiao Yan's face grew paler. When her mother finished, she was silent for a long time, trying to absorb what she had just heard. So Mr. Wang is my father? She finally asked quietly. Yes. And Ray is my half-brother? Yes. Xiao Yan looked at Ray, who sat without raising his eyes. And you knew this when you defended me at graduation? She asked. No, he finally said, lifting his head. I only found out this evening. But if I had known. What? What would you have done? Ray said nothing. He didn't know the answer. Would he have defended her, knowing the truth? Would he have confessed his love to his half-sister? These questions had no answer. I see, said Xiao Yan. So all this time, I was just a charity project. A poor girl who needed help to get an education. That's not true. Minhee cried. Your father never saw you as a burden or a project. He's proud of you, of your achievements. Proud? Xiao Yan laughed bitterly. So proud he kept my existence hidden from his son for 23 years? So proud he let me live in poverty while he bathed in luxury? Xiao Yan, Ray tried to intervene. It was your mother's decision. Don't defend him, she said sharply. And don't defend my mother. All of you lied to me my whole life. She stood and walked to the window. Do you know what hurts the most? She said without turning around. Not that I turned out to be illegitimate. Not that I lived my whole life in lies. But that the man I loved turned out to be my brother. Her last words were spoken in a whisper, but everyone heard them. Ray stood and walked over to her. Xiao Yan, listen. Don't come closer, she said without turning. Please. But we can talk about this. Find a way. A way for what? She turned, and Ray saw tears in her eyes. We are brother and sister. Our feelings are wrong, impossible, unacceptable. End of story. But we grew up in different families, never knowing we were related. That changes nothing. Genetically, we are family. And what I feel for you, what you feel for me, it's unnatural. Minhee rose from the couch. Children, she said, I know this is painful. But in time nothing will change, Xiao Yan interrupted. Ray, your father is right. You need to leave. Far away from here, from me. And never come back. I can't just forget you, said Ray. You must. We both must. She wiped her tears and straightened up. Tomorrow I'll apply for immigration, she said. To Canada or Australia. I'll start a new life where no one knows my story. Xiao Yan, don't make hasty decisions, her mother pleaded. 23 years of lies are enough. It's time to live honestly. Ray realized nothing could be changed. Xiao Yan was right, their love was impossible. But that didn't make the pain of parting any less sharp. Then I'll leave too, he said. Tomorrow, to London. Fine, Xiao Yan nodded. Goodbye, Ray. Goodbye. He wanted to hold her, kiss her one last time, but he knew he couldn't. Not anymore. Not ever again. Ray and Minhee left, leaving Xiao Yan alone with her pain and shattered dreams. The next year became the hardest in both their lives. Ray flew to London and buried himself in work, trying to forget the pain of loss. He ran the company's European branch, signed contracts, expanded business, worked 14 hours a day. Colleagues admired his dedication and professionalism, unaware that behind it all was a desperate attempt to numb his heartache. His father called regularly, asked about work, but never mentioned Xiao Yan. His mother sent letters with family news but also avoided the painful subject. Ray never asked about his half-sister, though every night he was tormented by not knowing what had become of her. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan didn't immigrate abroad, as she had threatened. Instead, she found a job at a small consulting firm in Busan, far from Seoul and its memories. Her analytical skills and knowledge of economics quickly earned her recognition from colleagues and management. She rented a small apartment near the sea, jogged along the promenade every morning in search of peace of mind. In the evenings she read, studied languages, worked on projects. She let no one close, telling coworkers she was focused on her career. Mr. Wang tried several times to contact Xiao Yan. He sent letters, asked Minhee to tell her he wanted to meet and talk as a father to a daughter. But Xiao Yan refused. She wasn't ready for that conversation. A year passed. Ray was returning to Seoul for a board of directors meeting. The plane landed early on an autumn morning, and his heart beat faster at the familiar outlines of the city. Here was his real life, his memories, and the woman he had never stopped loving. At the airport, his father met him. "You look well, Mr. Wang said, embracing his son. "London has done you good." "Thank you," Ray replied. "How are things at home?" "Mixed. The company is thriving. Your mother is healthy. But with Min-hee, things are complicated. Ray tensed. What happened? She wants to resign. Says she can't keep working for us, knowing the truth about our families. And how is Xiao Yan? Ray could no longer hold back. His father hesitated before answering. I tried to reach her several times. Wanted to explain. But she doesn't answer. Min-hee says her daughter lives in Busan, working, but keeping everyone at a distance. Is she unhappy? I don't know. Min-hee worries about her. On the way home, his father told Ray what had happened during the year of his absence. The company expanded into Southeast Asia, opened new hotels in Thailand and Vietnam. His mother took up charity, helping talented children from poor families get an education. Your idea, his father noted. Your mother says you inspired her with Xiao Yan's example. At home, nothing had changed, the same luxurious interior, the same expensive paintings on the walls, the same view of the manicured garden. But the atmosphere was different. Sadder, somehow. At dinner, his mother spoke of her projects. We've already helped 30 children enter universities, she said. We choose the most talented, regardless of their family's financial status. Wonderful, said Ray. And Min-hee? Is it true she wants to resign? His parents exchanged glances. Yes, his mother confirmed. She feels uncomfortable. And I understand her. Maybe I should talk to her? Ray, his father said gently, don't stir up the past. You came back to start a new life. Focus on the future. But Ray couldn't focus on the future without facing the past. The next day, while his parents were out, he went down to the kitchen, where Min-hee was preparing lunch. Hello, he said. The woman turned and bowed. Young Master Ray. Welcome home. Thank you. May I speak with you? Min-hee nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. How is Xiao Yan? Ray asked directly. She's managing, Min-hee answered cautiously. Working, building her career. Is she happy? Min-hee was silent for a long time. No, she finally said. She isn't happy. And neither are you. I'm managing. Managing and living are not the same thing. Ray sat down across from her. Min-hee, he said, I know our situation is complicated. But isn't there a way? Young master, she interrupted, I know what you feel. And I know what my daughter feels. But some things cannot be changed. Why? We grew up in different families, we love each other as man and woman, not as brother and sister. But you are brother and sister. And society will never accept your relationship. And if we don't care about society? Min-hee gave him a sad smile. Then you will condemn yourselves to a life in exile. To secret meetings, constant fear of discovery, the impossibility of having children. That is not a life, young master. It is torment. Ray knew she was right. But his heart refused to accept the logic of reason. Does she ever ask about me? Never, Min-hee answered honestly. But every time I visit her, I see how she listens for the sound of your name. It was both a comfort and a pain at the same time. Xiao Yan was suffering too, unable to forget. But what did that change? Another 6 months passed. Ray finally returned to Seoul and took the position of deputy CEO in the family company. He still worked hard, met various women his parents introduced to him, but none of them could make him forget Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan received a promotion and became head of the analytics department at her company. She bought a small apartment overlooking the sea, adopted a cat, and tried to build something resembling a normal life. But at night, she still dreamed of Ray. And then something happened that changed everything. Min-hee fell ill. At first it seemed like an ordinary cold, but soon it became clear it was more serious. The doctors diagnosed pneumonia and insisted on hospitalization. Yan immediately came to Seoul. She hadn't been in her hometown for over a year, and the return was painful. Every familiar corner reminded her of Ray, of the graduation night, of that evening when their world collapsed. At the hospital, she was met by Mrs. Wang. "Xiao Yan," she said, hugging the girl. "I'm so glad to see you, even under such circumstances." "How is my mother?" Xiao Yan asked. "The doctors say the crisis has passed. But recovery will take time." They went into the ward where Min-hee lay. The woman looked pale and tired, but her eyes lit up at the sight of her daughter. "Xiao Yan," she whispered. "You came." "Of course I came," said her daughter, sitting by the bed. "How do you feel?" "Better. But there are things I must tell you while I still can." "Mom, you'll get better." "Listen to me," Min-hee insisted. "There are things about your birth you don't know." Xiao Yan frowned. What else could her mother have hidden from her? Min-hee asked Mrs. Wang to stay. She had witnessed those events and could confirm the truth. "When I became pregnant with you," Min-hee began, "your father was already engaged to Su-min. His family insisted on this marriage of convenience." "I know that story," said Xiao Yan. "Not all of it. You see, when I found out about my pregnancy, something else came to light. Su-min was pregnant too." Xiao Yan looked at Mrs. Wang in surprise. "You carried Ray at the same time?" "Yes, Mrs. Wang nodded. "But that's not the point." "Then what is?" Min-hee took a deep breath. Su-min was not pregnant by Jin Woo. She was having an affair with another man, her cousin, Wang Jin-ho. Xiao Yan felt dizzy. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that Ray's biological father is not Jin Woo, but his cousin Jin-ho," Min-hee said slowly. But that means... That means you and Ray are not brother and sister," finished Mrs. Wang. "You share no parents." The world around Xiao Yan swayed. For a year and a half she had tormented herself, believing her love for Ray was unnatural and impossible. For a year and a half they had both suffered, thinking their feelings were forbidden. And all this time. "Why did you keep silent?" she whispered. Mrs. Wang lowered her eyes. "Because the truth was too painful for everyone. My husband loved me, despite knowing the child was not his. He gave Ray his name, raised him as his own son. Why destroy his life? But you destroyed ours." Xiao Yan cried. "We thought we were doing the right thing," Min-hee said softly. "Your worlds were too different anyway. That was for us to decide, not you." Xiao Yan stood up, unable to stay in the ward any longer. Her head spun with the revelations. Ray was not her brother. Their love was not perversion, but a natural feeling between a man and a woman. A year and a half lost. A year and a half of pain and suffering, for nothing. She ran out of the hospital and sat down on the first bench she saw, trying to gather her thoughts. What now? Call Ray? But what would she say? "Hi, turns out we're not related, so we can be together?" Too much time had passed. Too much pain had been caused. What if Ray had already found someone else? What if he had accepted the loss and no longer loved her? Xiao Yan took out her phone and dialed Ray's number, the one she had remembered all those months. But at the last second she canceled the call, not waiting for an answer. Not everything in life can be fixed, even when the truth finally comes out. Mrs. Wang found Xiao Yan an hour later in the hospital garden. The girl was sitting on a bench, staring blankly at a fountain in the pond. "I know what you're feeling," said Mrs. Wang, sitting beside her. "Do you?" Xiao Yan gave a bitter smile. "Do you know what it's like to spend a year and a half thinking you're a pervert? Fighting feelings you believe are wrong?" "I do. Because I went through it myself." Xiao Yan turned to her. What do you mean? When I found out I was pregnant not by my husband, I suffered too. I loved Jin Ho, but I knew our relationship would destroy two families. I had to choose between heart and duty. And you chose duty? Yes. Jin Woo was a kind man. He cared for me, even knowing the child was not his. And Jin Ho. He was too much like me in character. We would have burned in our own passion or destroyed each other. Xiao Yan listened, for the first time seeing in the strict Mrs. Wang a real woman with her own suffering. But Ray and I are different, she said. We could be happy. You could, Mrs. Wang agreed. And I regret that my silence caused you so much pain. But now you have a chance to set things right. Too much time has passed. A year and a half, not a lifetime, Mrs. Wang said gently. Ray hasn't married. What's more, he refuses to see the women introduced to him. He says his heart is taken. A faint spark of hope lit in Xiao Yan's chest. He said that? Not directly. But a mother knows when her child suffers. Ray works like a man possessed, but there's the same pain in his eyes as in yours. And what if he doesn't want to see me? If he thinks we've hurt each other too much? Then at least you'll know you tried, Mrs. Wang replied. Xiao Yan, you and Ray have a chance at real happiness. Few people are lucky enough to find true love. Don't lose it because of pride or fear. That evening, Xiao Yan stood in front of the mirror in her hotel room, trying to decide what to wear for her meeting with Ray. Around 6 o'clock she had called him and simply said, "We need to talk." It's important. He had agreed, but his voice had been cautious, distant. They had arranged to meet at a small cafe in Namsan Park, the very place where, as students, they had once run into each other after Professor Cho's lecture. Back then, they had talked about economic theories, never imagining the path their lives would take. Ray arrived first. Xiao Yan saw him through the glass door. He was sitting at a window table, nervously turning a cup of coffee in his hands. A year and a half had changed him, his face had grown more serious, and a few gray strands streaked his hair, though he was only 25. But his eyes were the same, dark, intelligent, kind. When she walked in, their eyes met, and for a moment time stopped. All the pain and separation of the past 18 months disappeared, leaving only the familiar feeling, two halves of a soul, finally reunited. "Hi," said Xiao Yan, approaching the table. "Hi," Ray replied, standing. "You look good." "You too." They sat across from each other, awkwardness hanging in the air. There was so much to say, but where to begin? "How's Busan?" Ray asked. "Good. The job is interesting, colleagues are nice." "How's London?" "Also good. Learned a lot, expanded the company." They talked about work, about plans, about the weather, everything except the real subject. Finally, Xiao Yan couldn't take it anymore. "Ray," she said, "I know the truth. About my birth." "About your birth." He froze with the cup in his hands. "What truth?" "Your mother told me." "You're not Mr. Wang's son. We're not related." Ray slowly set the cup down. He was too stunned to react immediately. "What? What did you just say?" Xiao Yan told him everything she had learned at the hospital, about Mrs. Wang's affair with her brother-in-law, about Ray's true father being Wang Jin Ho, about how all these months they had suffered for nothing. "A year and a half," Ray whispered when she finished. "For a year and a half we tormented ourselves, believing our love was wrong." "Yes." "And all this time my parents knew?" "Your mother knew." "About your father, I'm not sure." Ray stood and walked to the window. He looked at the evening city, at the lights flickering on as darkness fell. "You know what's strangest?" he said without turning around. "I always felt I was different from my father. In character, in worldview, even in looks. Now it makes sense. Ray, Xiao Yan said softly, what do we do now? He turned and looked at her. I don't know. Honestly, I'm lost. For a year and a half I forced myself to forget you, to accept that we couldn't be together. And now it turns out we can. But do we want to? The question hung in the air. A year and a half had changed many things. They had both grown, each with their own life, their own habits. Could they really just go back to what they had before? I don't know what I feel, Ray admitted. There's been too much pain. Too many attempts to erase you. I understand, Xiao Yan nodded. Maybe we're rushing. Maybe we need time. No, he said sharply. We've already lost enough time. He came back to the table and sat down across from her. Xiao Yan, he said, looking straight into her eyes, for a year and a half I tried to forget you. I dated other women, forced myself to be interested in them. But it never worked. Because you're the only one I truly love. Ray. Let me finish. I know we've both changed. I know there's a wall of pain and mistrust between us now. But I want to try to tear it down. I want to try again. Xiao Yan felt tears welling in her eyes. And if it doesn't work? If we just hurt each other more? Then at least we'll know we tried. Xiao Yan, will you give us another chance? She was silent for a long time, battling conflicting emotions. Fear and hope, pain and love, all tangled in her soul. Yes, she finally whispered. I will. Ray reached across the table, and she placed her hand in his. Just like a year and a half ago, a spark leapt between them at the touch. Then let's start from the beginning, he said. My name is Ray Wang, I'm 25, and I'd like to get to know you better. Xiao Yan smiled through her tears. My name is Xiao Yan, I'm 24, and I'd like to get to know you better too. The following months became a time of cautious closeness. Ray and Xiao Yan met once a week, sometimes in Seoul, sometimes Ray traveled to Busan. They walked along the waterfront, dined in small restaurants, talked about everything, work, books, future plans. But there was still an invisible wall between them. Both were afraid to fully open up, afraid of being hurt again. They avoided the painful topic of the past, never spoke about feelings, kept a safe distance. Minnie recovered and returned to work, but now the atmosphere in the Wang household had changed. Mr. Wang learned the truth about his son's birth from his wife and was shaken. At first he was angry at the deception, then he reflected for a long time, and finally concluded nothing had changed. Ray was still his son, the one he had loved and raised. Blood isn't everything, he told his wife. I raised him as mine, and he became my son not by biology, but by heart. Mrs. Wang was grateful for his understanding but still felt guilty for years of silence. As for Ray and Xiao Yan, Ray's parents no longer opposed them. On the contrary, Mrs. Wang encouraged their closeness, feeling responsible for the suffering her silence had caused. One day in late November, Ray came to Busan for the weekend. He and Xiao Yan walked along the beach, watching the sunset. The air was cool, and Ray took off his jacket to drape over her shoulders. Thank you, she said, accepting his care. Don't mention it. They walked in silence, listening to the surf. Finally, Xiao Yan gathered the courage to bring up the conversation she had been postponing for months. Ray, she said, we need to talk about what's happening between us. He stopped. You're right. We've been circling around it for 3 months. I don't know what we're doing, she admitted. We meet, but it's not really dating. We talk, but not about the important things. We're afraid, Ray finished for her. Yes. Afraid of repeating past mistakes. Ray sat down on the sand and patted the spot beside him. Xiao Yan sat down too. Do you know what I'm most afraid of? He asked. That we're being so careful we'll miss our chance to be happy. And I'm afraid that if I let myself love you again, I won't survive if you leave. I'm not leaving, Ray said firmly. I already left once. I almost went insane. But back then you thought we were relatives. Xiao Yan, he turned to her, I love you. I loved you 2 years ago. I loved you during all these 18 months apart. I love you now. Nothing has changed. It has changed, she replied. We've changed. We've both become more cautious, more closed off. We have scars we didn't have before. Scars heal. Some don't. Ray took her hand. Then let's see. Let's try to be together for real. Not these cautious once-a-week meetings, but a real relationship. And if it doesn't work? If it doesn't, we'll part ways. But at least we'll have tried honestly. Xiao Yan stared at the sea, where waves rolled onto the shore one after another, endlessly, persistently, inexorably. Okay, she finally said. We'll try. Winter brought change. Xiao Yan received an offer to work in the Seoul office of an international consulting firm. The salary was higher, the career growth opportunities better. But most importantly, it allowed her to be closer to Ray. Are you sure you want to move back to Seoul? He asked when she told him about the offer. Maybe it's too big a step. I'm ready, she replied. I don't want to hide from the past anymore. In January, Xiao Yan moved to Seoul and rented an apartment near her new office. Ray helped her move, and for the first time in a long while they spent an entire day together, setting up her new home. It's cozy here, he said, surveying the small but bright apartment with large windows. Yes, I like it. And most importantly, you can't see the ocean from here. What's wrong with the ocean? It's too sad. Always reminds me of infinity and loneliness. Ray came over and gently hugged her. You're not alone anymore, he said. I know, she replied, pressing against his chest. It's just sometimes hard to believe. Their relationship developed slowly but surely. They met every 2 or 3 days, discovering new sides to each other, learning to trust again. Ray introduced Xiao Yan to his friends, who welcomed her warmly. She told him about her colleagues in Busan, the books she had read alone, the dreams she had postponed. Gradually, they learned to talk about painful topics too, about how each had endured the separation, their fears, their doubts. Do you know what hurt the most? Xiao Yan admitted one evening as they sat in her apartment with tea. Not the pain of separation, but the thought that my feelings for you were unnatural, perverse. It was hard for me too, Ray said. Especially in the first months in London. I felt monstrous for being unable to forget you. And now? Now I understand that we simply loved each other. No guilt, no shame. Just a normal, healthy love between a man and a woman. In March, when the cherry blossoms bloomed in Seoul, Ray did what he had been thinking about for weeks. He invited Xiao Yan to dinner at the same restaurant where their graduation evening had taken place. Why are we here? She asked, entering the familiar hall. I want to rewrite our story, Ray said. Our world fell apart here. Let it rise again in the same place. They sat at a table by the window overlooking evening Seoul. Ray ordered champagne and raised his glass. To a new beginning, he said. To a new beginning, Xiao Yan repeated. After dinner, they walked through the city at night, and suddenly Ray stopped near a small park. Xiao Yan, he said, turning to face her, I want to tell you something important. What? I'm ready. Ready to forget the past, ready to trust the future. Ready to be with you, not just now, but always. Xiao Yan felt her breath catch. Ray, will you marry me? He said, pulling a small box from his pocket. I know we've been through a lot. I know we have scars. But I also know that I love you more than life itself and want to spend the rest of my days with you. He opened the box, and under the streetlight, a small but beautiful diamond ring sparkled. Xiao Yan stood, unable to speak. She had dreamed of this moment, but now that it had arrived, she was overwhelmed. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say yes, Ray smiled. It's a very simple word. Yes, she said, tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. Yes, of course, yes. Ray slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, the first real kiss in 2.5 years. And that kiss was all their love, all the pain of separation, all the joy of reunion. I love you, he whispered, holding her close. I love you too, she replied. I always have. Even when I thought I had no right. The wedding took place in September, exactly 1 year after the engagement. The celebration was not as extravagant as it could have been for the heir of the Wang Empire, but it was warm and sincere. There were few guests, close friends, colleagues, family. Minnie cried tears of joy seeing her daughter in a white dress. Mr. Wang proudly walked Xiao Yan down the aisle, finally fulfilling his role as a father. Mrs. Wang organized the whole celebration, ensuring every detail was perfect. Ready? Asked Min Su, Ray's friend and the witness at the wedding. Ready from the day I met her, Ray replied, adjusting his tie. When Xiao Yan entered the hall escorted by Mr. Wang, everyone gasped. She was beautiful, not the refined beauty that comes from expensive clothes and jewelry, but the beauty of a happy woman walking toward the one she loved. Beautiful bride you have, Min Su whispered. The most beautiful in the world, Ray answered proudly. The ceremony proceeded without incident. The couple exchanged rings and vows, kissed under the applause of the guests. Then came the banquet, during which reconciliation occurred. Tahun, who had tried to humiliate Xiao Yan at graduation years ago, approached the newlyweds' table. Xiao Yan, he said, I want to apologize for what I did years ago. It was cruel and unfair. Thank you, she replied. I hold no grudge. And I also want to say that you were right at graduation. Intelligence and character matter more than background. It took me a few years to realize that. Ray shook his hand. We all make mistakes, he said. The important thing is to acknowledge them. After the banquet, the newlyweds departed for their honeymoon, a month in Europe, visiting Paris, Rome, London. They wandered museums, dined in small cafes, and talked for hours about the future. You know what I'm thinking about? Xiao Yan said one day as they sat in a Roman cafe at Piazza Navona. What? That we could create something meaningful. Not just make money, but help people. What do you mean? A foundation for talented children from underprivileged families. So they could get an education without hiding their origins. Ray pondered. That's a great idea. Will you lead the program? We'll lead it together, Xiao Yan smiled. And so an idea was born that, over the years, grew into one of the most successful educational projects in Korea. After returning from their honeymoon, the newlyweds moved into a new home, not Ray's parents' mansion, but their own house, built to their taste. Small, cozy, with large windows and a garden where Xiao Yan grew roses. A year later, they had a daughter, a little beauty with her mother's brown eyes and her father's smile. They named her So Yan, which means precious, because she was the most precious thing they had. She looks like you, Ray said, holding their daughter in his arms. Like both of us, Xiao Yan corrected him. She will grow up knowing the truth about our family. No secrets, no lies. Agreed. Secrets cause pain. The Lee Man-hee Education Foundation, named after Xiao Yan's mother, helped over 1,000 children from underprivileged families get a higher education in 5 years. Xiao Yan personally met every scholarship recipient, while Ray ensured the program's funding. Do you remember what you said to me on our first date after our engagement? Ray asked his wife on their 5th wedding anniversary. What exactly? That you wanted to change the world for the better. And? You did it. We did it. Xiao Yan looked out the window, where their daughter played in the garden with the foundation's children, who had come for a family celebration. Do you know what's most amazing? She said. All our suffering, all our mistakes, all the pain, it led us to what we have now. If things had gone smoothly back at graduation, we wouldn't be who we are today. You think the trials made us stronger? I think the trials taught us to value happiness, Xiao Yan replied, leaning against her husband. And in the garden, their daughter laughed, playing with friends, and that laughter was the most beautiful music in the world, the music of true happiness, earned through honest effort and sincere love. The story of Ray and Xiao Yan proved that love is stronger than prejudice, truth is more important than lies, and real happiness comes to those willing to fight for it, never giving in to life's hardships.